Yeah,
you
I
know?
guess the emails go to everybody, so just reply all would do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll let you, I'll write up a little
Awesome.
of my impressions.
Thank you.
Also, I'm at a close friend's house. Um, I have told her that she can listen in on this class. I'm asking your consent for that. She won't be participating, but she'll be in the background. Is that acceptable?
It's fine with me. If anybody else has a concern, please speak up. It's a power-packed time to listen in. I mean, we've been together for such a long journey. You know,
That's right.
we have a bit of a shorthand with each other at this point. So, hopefully it will contribute and not, I don't know, something else.
Sounds like at least it's all right. Her name is Lyndon. She may appear in the background.
Hi, Lyndon. Blessings. Mm. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. So beautiful to be together. Oh, so good.
Also,
Mm.
one more thing, my buddy Caroline missed last week and this week because of something that she's got to work on. I'm going to be asking a question of the group for her benefit when she watches the recording. That's later in the class.
Okay. Thanks, Alan. Go ahead and mute yourself now, Alan, and anybody who just mute yourself. Just getting here, just feeling our hearts. Oh, so, so good to be together. Such a field we've created. Feel so nested in this field. Mm, so good. So, Mary Marty is going to be leading our meditation today. When you're ready, Mary Marty.
Okay, I think I'm ready. Um, okay, I use some props when I do meditation, and I wanted to begin and end with those. Um, First of all, I put on a shawl, um, a beautiful alpaca shawl given to me by my two favorite cousins, and it represents all those I love and all those who wrap me in their love. And then from the basket, I take this black velvety dress that I've worn to a few funerals, and I sit in my chair and I put it over my legs and my knees, and um, I give thanks for my body and for this life. Really, really feeling as I walk into my meditation that awareness of life. Ah. And in my lap and in my hands, I hold this light, easy, reassuring cloth that is a symbol of love and wisdom. And then I take my finger labyrinth and I walk into my meditation. And as I walk in, I'm centering myself on the sacred, the holy, the eternal, the infinite. I remember Christ the teacher, my first teacher of love and wisdom. And I honor the Holy Mother, Divine Mother, my mother, who's been gone for 23 years, and my dad, who's been gone for 16, and I bring them into this meditation space with me. And then I again focus on my body, my feet on the floor, my seat on the chair, and I invite you to do these things with me. Deep breaths. and exhales with a sigh. Shaking my shoulders, laughing and smiling, shrugging my shoulders, really settling into my body. Focus on your breath. Open yourself. I open myself to the wisdom and the love. And that's where I spend my time in meditation. So we'll take a few quiet moments. I also add a hum to my exhale to bring the wisdom and the love more fully into my body. Wisdom is always present within, as is the love. So when my time is over, I walk out of the labyrinth, taking all of that love and wisdom with me into my day. When I rise, I first let go of all the love from the external world that has surrounded me, giving great thanks and blessings on these loved ones. I drop the scarf into my basket. The love and the wisdom I know goes on forever. But for now, it goes into the basket. And the symbol of my body, I hug it to me and I give such thanks. Yes to life and yes to death.
Thank you, Mary Marty. Mm.
I'm really feeling that yes to death this morning. It's still hard, even though I've been doing it every day for a very long time. It's still quite sobering.
Yeah. Mary Marty and I talked about before she signed up for the class, and we just had a check in, a conversation, and she said, every morning I sit with the sacred fabrics, including the funeral cloth, and in one hand I hold this celebration, gratitude for life, and in the other I hold the celebration and gratitude for death. And I thought, oh my goodness, we need that meditation. So thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
All right. For the last time, would someone be willing to share a beloved dead? Someone who has not shared a beloved dead yet.
I would.
Please, Carl, go ahead.
Okay. I'm gonna try to share my screen. We'll see if I can do it or not.
I
Let's see.
think I need to give you permission.
Oh, really?
Yeah, give me a second.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, let me see. Hold on, Carl. Let's see. Make co-host. Okay. Go ahead and try now.
Uh, what do y'all see there? Okay, here we go. How about that?
It's still loading. Yes, we can see. We can see.
Okay, so this is my dad's family. And shucks, I'm sorry. Uh, I'm right here. Do you see my cursor?
Yeah, you're the baby in the picture,
Yeah,
the littlest one. Yeah.
yeah. It's in 1953. And this is all his family here. His sister, one of his sisters, sister, older brother, younger brother, my mom, and my older brother, and his father and his mother. And this is in Arkansas. Um, a lot of tragedies with this family, I have to say. Uh, but like my aunt had ALS, and my uncle kept her alive till after he died. And my aunt, she had the arthritis, the painful stuff. And my uncle there, he was killed in a pedestrian auto accident
Mm.
suddenly. And so let's see.
Can you give us the name of your one relative, maybe your dad or someone you'd like to
Oh yeah,
name?
I have one more picture to show if it's possible, if you have time.
Sure.
So, yeah, I'm sorry you're told that. Oops. This is mom and dad. This is Mary Doby and Joe Doby.
Mary
Yeah.
Doby and Joe Doby. Did I get
Yeah.
Mary and Joe Doby?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. She
Hmm.
had Parkinson's for like 20 years, and she's they're on her decline there in
Hmm.
front of their house.
Hmm. Beautiful.
So,
Mary and Joe, thank you so much, Carl. Thank you. You did a
uh,
good job sharing.
thank you.
Lumen, I saw your hand. Would you like to share as well? I'd love to hear about your beloved dead if you're able and ready.
Sure. Um, oh, to pick only one, how does one do it? I have been nursing, like tending to an altar that started when this class started, and on it has been my both of my grandmothers and my one of my childhood best friends, um, and one of my siblings, both who passed in, yeah, like very young considering. And so I would like to name my sibling Thomas Jacob Nyer, um, who passed at age 33. Um, and he was a Spitfire, firecracker, just red hair, huge personality, very um, charismatic, and I have these incredible memories of us being absolutely ridiculous and like recording ourselves on these like handheld, recorders, and then the screen would come out and we could watch ourselves suddenly, and we just would spend entire summers together, like goofing off and recording ourselves and watching ourselves, and we swore we would have like a reality TV show one day. And I feel so much of him with me these days, in, yeah, just in my pursuit for deeper security. And he was such a go-getter and so in love with wealth and opulence, which was so different than how we grew up. And when I was younger, I was thinking like, who cares about all that stuff? You're so whatever, you're so self-centered, or you're so blah blah blah. But in retrospect, I see that he just really valued evolution and growing towards things that were like too good for us or something. But he wanted to just be good. He wanted to be worthy of wonderful things, and I feel his life force guiding me as I'm growing more into my light.
Mhm.
Thomas, I love you.
Thomas,
Thank you.
Thomas Jacob, is that right?
Thomas Jacob. Yeah.
I got a feel for Thomas Jacob in my heart. Thank you.
Mm,
Thank you for sharing.
yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Carl. Thank you, Lumen, for that vulnerability. Mm. God, so rich. So rich. So, welcome to week 13, After Death Musings and What's Next. I'm going to start our quote with my favorite these days, Andrea Gibson. I decided I was too soft to last. I decided I was too soft to last. And then I decided to be softer. And then I decided to be softer. So, what I want to say to you on this last formal time together is that you are now, each of you, initiates into what I'm calling the death curious monastic order. You are now initiates. There's no going back. And from my perspective, you're all mystics. You've been contemplating the mystery alone and together. And what that means is that your relationship with death is now a sacred part of your life. And here's the thing about being a death curious monastic order member is that there are no easy answers. There are no guarantees. The trail is rife with paradox. And no matter what road you take, it always ends in death. But here's your secret weapon. Here's where your initiation is important. You're aware of that. You are aware of that. And this represents a very small percentage of the population, at least the Western population, that has a relationship with death that isn't gripped solely by fear, avoidance, and denial. Not that you don't have those things. We all have those things. But you've really come through a threshold here where death is at the very least inspiring you towards some level of inquiry. That's a huge, huge deal. So how will you use this initiation for yourself, for others? What will you do with this precious gift? You're about to go into the world with non-initiates. We won't be traveling together much longer together. How will you keep the faith? How will you keep your sacred relationship with death? How will you keep allowing death to soften you, to open you, to annihilate you. I want to tell you a story about the Tibetan monk. His name is Apalden Gyatso. He was a Tibetan Buddhist monk who was born in the early 1930s and was trained in the old traditional way of Buddhist monks. And he was sort of caught in the Tibetan uprising, the Chinese invasion, and was captured by the Chinese during the takeover in Tibet, and he was imprisoned for decades, 30 years. And he wrote a book about his autobiography, this experience. It's called Fire Under the Snow. And the Chinese were known for their pretty significant torture. He was in labor camps and 30 years in prison. And he was asked at one point, what was the worst moment of your experience? And his answer is somewhat astounding. What is your worst moment of 30 years in Chinese prison, labor camps? And I want to tell you what he said, but I want you to build a little bit of soil for this response, because without preparation, it could seem like a trite response. It could seem like I don't know, it could seem unreal. It could seem almost like a joke. So just imagine him, trained as a monk, captured and imprisoned for 30 years. The worst thing that happened to him in all that time, his response is, I almost got mad once. I almost got mad once. My invitation to you is to have that level of commitment to your own death positivity, your own death curiosity, and your own intimacy with death. Hmm. Yeah. Hmm.
Lee,
Yes.
could you say more about how to accomplish that? What it might look like, please, please.
Yeah. I'd love for us to just sit for a minute and answer that question ourselves. Like, let's take a couple of minutes and ask ourselves that question and see if there is some sharing that can happen. So let's just take a couple of minutes in silence. How do we, the question being, how do we stay that committed to death as friend, death as teacher, death as gift? How do we stay that committed? Hmm. Yeah, just opening up the brainstorm realm. Let's open up the realm of suggestion if anyone has any. How do we stay committed? What does it look like to stay committed to death as friend? Intimacy. Becky.
As with any situation, I have to identify the feeling. And I was angry at my brother's death, not because of death, not because of him dying. It was how people were, the administration they built up around it. And we were very angry because they wouldn't give him the meds to take the pain away. And he was miserable. And anytime I feel strong emotions, I have to stop and say, what is the base of my emotion? What am I mad at? What am I actually feeling? And if I could take away the anger at the administration, then I know it's not death that I was mad at. And I can eliminate that part of it, that
Oof.
part of the memory.
Wow.
As a person with lifelong depression, this is a long, lifelong lesson I'm still learning. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Really impacted by that. Wow. Yeah, really impacted that. It wasn't death, it was the dynamics and the bureaucracy and the lack of support. Thank you. Oh, really touched me. Thank you, my heart. Satya.
Good morning. Yeah, Becky, thank you so much for that. I'm really feeling that as well.
A little bit louder, love. You're quiet.
Let me bring you closer. Does that
Yes.
help?
Yes, better.
Thank you, Becky. I'm really feeling that as well. I think what comes up for me is like a very sort of consistent inquiry for me around emotions. And so when I hear that, I almost got mad once. It impacted me so big. And then my inquiry is pretty consistent around, and I feel emotion coming up around this, like, isn't my anger okay? Like, aren't these feelings okay? You know? And as I continue to inquire about it, and I'm actually, I've come a long way with that. I think the commitment for me is a commitment to what is in the moment, right? A commitment to being with what is in the moment and not suffering. And yeah, that's really what I got from that I could feel like sort of went deeper into my bones of, right, that's what the commitment is. Because if I let the anger or any other of, sort of expressions have its way with me, then I'm not really in the moment and present with what is. Still inquiring. Thank you.
Mm. I resonate, as a highly emotional, I would say deeply erotic path where emotion is welcome. It's a different tradition than this beautiful creature, uh, that expressed this, torture, and it's a different path. And yeah, the depth of that commitment whew, is particular, is particular. So, and finding our own way in our commitment. So thank you, Satya. Thank you. Anyone else? Mary Marty, and then Carl.
I just wanted to say how I can be more curious about death is I think instead of just spending 30 or 60 seconds dropping the black item into the basket, I could sit for 5 or 10 minutes and go further into what does this really feel like?
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Name all the things that come up
Mm.
and sit with those. I might add that.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you. Carl.
Uh, I think Mary Marty kind of expressed what I'm thinking pretty well, but kind of what I heard from the quote was that it was the same, have death as the same relationship to what he had to his anger, that it was a very intimate, his emotions to the anger, and he was able to have that so close to his heart that he was able to control it maybe. And so what I got was just to be so much in touch with my body and have an open heart. And so sometimes it's hard to keep in touch with my body. So
Mm-hmm.
that was all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. It's big inquiry that I am also in a big journey with, Carl. So I appreciate your request and yeah, just the depth that we are in together with that question. Thank you. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, so I wanted to share a little bit more of a story. It's like the stories are emerging this week, and I wanted to sort of share some vulnerability of my own journey when we are thinking about this beautiful question about what happens after death. This is sort of a sort of dual meaning. Um, what's next? Meaning what happens after we end class together is one way about what's next, but also what's next after death. And Brenda is going to lead us later today with the guiding a meditation with us about our future selves. And I'm so grateful to her and her presence and her guidance with this. But I did want to touch base briefly around some of my journey about how I'm exploring an inquiry about what happens after death. And I sort of wanted to start with a level of vulnerability about my own journey and my own process to tell you sort of conceptual where I'm coming from with it. And um, it starts with this idea that religion is where most of us have been influenced, right? Many of us grew up with perspectives that have been given to us by a lot of times Christianity, not always, but for many of us, Christianity is the story of what happens to us, what life and death means, the cosmological framework. And lately, for me, my personal story is that for the last couple of years, I've been going very, very deep into the unwinding of my own childhood trauma because I want to be more alive. I want to be more healed. And the journey has been so intense. And the amount of fear and control dynamics with my family has been layers and layers and layers of deep trauma that it just doesn't seem to end ever, really. It's just ongoing. And I'm so grateful that I have the resources to deal with it. And at the root of this fear and control has been mostly an immigration story, which, like many families, ripped people apart from their deep attachments to place, to people, to tradition, to village, to land base, to food based systems. And whenever I do the deepest work, which again has been the last couple of years, this story of immigration has been sort of the baseline, sort of baseline. And there's other aspects, other similar things like poverty and capitalism and ethnic discrimination. There's industrialization, there's world wars, there's a whole bunch of stuff that, is part of my lineage, probably many of us. But one of the life rafts of my family was their attachment that turned out to be what I view as pretty toxic, which is Catholicism. And I've come to realize that the fear and control and manipulation that was really passed on from generation to generation, that I've spent my whole entire life trying to unwind, has been a pretty abusive context. And this religious abuse or spiritual abuse, I think that there's some beautiful reparation that I think Christians and Catholics have been trying to repair. But for me, I really rejected the whole thing. I just thought the whole thing was abusive when I grew up and sort of threw it all out. And my attitude, my framework was, gosh, what this idea that there's sin and that there's hell and that we need redemption through proper behavior, or there's a good and right way to be, or that there's a human mediated relationship with God, or any of these notions, I really, for me, has landed as a brilliant and devastated psychology that really tricked a lot of people, including my family. And I have been, trying to make sense of it all. And part of how I've personally made sense of it has just been my own journey. But, I've been learning about somatic practices. Carl has talked about somatics and trying to figure out what my own heart and my own body is telling me, and actually exploring other religious traditions. I sort of turned more towards Eastern traditions, right? Towards village-based living and towards land-based systems. I've just like really explored and experimented. And I really enjoyed the Eastern philosophies that I ran across, because they seemed to me intact and age-old wisdom, and their focus on sort of inner transformation. They were sort of less dogmatic that I grew up with, and a bit more holistic and less corruption than I really was discovering in Catholicism. And where I've ended up personally is this sort of Socratic idea of know thyself. That the existence, this unique existence, that exists, right? This really delicate and temporary and unique presence of a personality is such a gift, right? That's been my inquiry. So when we come to this teaching, I've never really taught this teaching before. I've never included in any end of life inquiry. This is the first time. This question of heaven and hell, being what I grew up with, and thinking, gosh, there must be truth to this, because there's so many traditions that bring this. But what is it for me? Like, how is it? How can it be without control and manipulation? What's true for me? And, it's an interesting time to be alive, because we have the internet and all of these stories and these hidden secrets that are now coming alive. And I think this ultimate truth is that death is a mystery, and the only truth is anything that we've personally each experimented. That's the only truth. If experimented and experienced something, it's the only thing that's true. So death is the only thing worth considering, in a way, because we just don't know. That being said, I'm really grateful to the journey of near-death experiences. And I really stand on the shoulders of Raymond Moody and Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who revolutionized their understanding of death and really revolutionary and groundbreaking work. Raymond Moody was the first in 1975. He was the first and published Life After Death, which is this incredibly moving and short book, which is worth reading all these years later. And he was a doctor and then identified these consistent patterns of stories when people told these stories of these near-death experiences. A very systemic study. And he really bridged the gap between the spiritual and the clinical and the empirical and consciousness. His book is called Life After Life, 1975. Life After Life. Really powerful. You imagine this coming out in the 70s. And then Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who was, her breakthrough was about the stages of grief. But then in the 1970s and 80s, she also started becoming familiar with and speaking about near-death experiences and finding some of the very same pieces that Moody found. And she emphasized the transformation and the healing aspect of near-death experiences and how it really helped people to diminish their fear, right? And her advocacy, both of these people really outspoken to the medical community and, sort of considered to be outspoken in ways that wasn't very popular at the time. But because we now have this grand access to so much, it seems like near-death experiences are just worth a path of consideration. What I will say is the themes, and I'd love for Damon Sean to speak up about this too, because he and I have both separately, interestingly enough, been really deepening into this study. And it's shifted culture so much, really. It's shifted culture so much. And I will just say a little bit, and then I'd love for Damon Sean to share his thoughts too. The 7 sort of commonalities of near-death experiences is this out-of-body experience. So leaving the physical body and observing it from an outside perspective is a big one. This heightened senses, being able to sense what people are feeling and experiencing, people around. The movement through a tunnel or a transition of some kind. An encountering of light, often a profound, loving presence. Another really big characteristic is a life review, a panoramic review of one's life, and a self-reflection, a deep understanding of how we might have contributed to people and we might have hurt people. Encountering beloveds, so meeting deceased loved ones, spiritual guides, or other people that we perceive as allies. Another really big theme. And then a feeling of peace or bliss or unity, this unconditional love or euphoria. These are the experiences that most people who report near-death experience are consistent about. And then each of these experiences unique, has their own unique flavor, but these are the themes. Damon, Sean, do you have something to add here?
Sure, yeah. There's, I guess, a couple different things. One is that there is a very consistent experience of very deep peace and profound love. that transcends any experience of the human experience, and that most often these people do not want to come back here. Like they really want to stay in the experience of where they're at, and that it often feels more real than here, more full of light, more um, experience, deeper, more saturated experiences of their senses, of taste, smell, light, love, emotions, are also part of a consistent part of that experience. There's often, you talked about the life review piece. Very often there's like zero judgment on whoever is there with them. Often it's just pure love, but the self-reflection has its own judgment based on the way they experience their life. So it's not passed down on them, but because of how it's presented and experienced, sometimes through other people's eyes that they were interacting with, where they actually get, sort of a third person experience of these situations. They get a whole different perspective. Um, there's sometimes a review of specific lessons that they were here to learn, and an encouragement to come back and learn them, and specific connections with relationships to address, is often offered as well. Um, what else? And it's one of the most profound experiences of their life. So almost all of them consistently say, I still remember it to this day, and it comes up often, and it's changed my life quite deeply. Like it's a major transformational experience for them. And that most anyone else they tell, even their closest friends and relatives, tend to have a really hard time believing their stories, even with lots of sort of detailed descriptions of what was happening in the emergency rooms and things that were happening to them. There's just a lot of blocking to being open to what they're sharing and their experience of it. So that's been a big stigma for people to overcome, in these processes of these experiences. Um, yeah, and that they no longer fear death. In many ways, they look forward to it. That here on this human plane, it is actually much, much, much harder, and that it's designed to be that way. That the difficulties of this life are made to help us learn lessons and to really choose love and fear. And so we're put in these, very challenging interactions and relationships and situations in the world to learn these lessons and make clear choices about them. So I think that's about
Mm.
it.
Thank you so much, Damon Sean. That was
Mm,
beautiful,
yeah.
complimentary. So let's do a breakout room. We're going to do two people each, and your um, prompts are, what's next for you in terms of this initiation, this 13-week initiation, and how do you um, keep alive this relationship with death? What's one prompt? Another prompt is, how do you feel about what happens next? What happens after death? What's alive for you about near-death experiences or any other perspective or belief that you have been contemplating working with? So why don't we do 12 minutes each? So 6 minutes each, or however, whatever back and forth you'd like. This is a deep topic. So I recommend just really being present with the other person as they share and sharing yourself. So let us know when you're ready, Anna.
How goodly, just to clarify, 12 minutes each person or each room?
12 minutes total. So each person will have 6
Okay.
minutes roughly each.
Okay. Okay, got it.
Thank you, Anna. Hmm. Welcome back. Anybody who has not shared today, would love to hear from you. What's on your heart about these topics? Anyone who has not shared yet today? Your sharing's our contribution to us as we grapple with these questions. Alan?
I shared before the course began, so I felt okay. All right. Hearing you speak of near-death experiences and the commonality of the characteristics of all of them makes me want to explore that for myself in order to release a sense of very deep fear of dying and replace it with perhaps not necessarily excitement, but at least anticipation. That's all.
Thank you. One of my death practices is this question. I don't even think I've explained this to anyone. One of my death practices is what is the life review going to look like? And can I do it now? Can I practice it now? Which means, can I have empathy for how I've hurt people? Can I have celebration of how I've contributed? Can I remember things that live in me and find a way to bless them, you know? So I have never had personally a near-death experience, but I'm taking these characteristic and principles to use them, other people's, themes and experiences to sort of play around with it. Yeah. Heather, please.
Yeah, Mari and I had such a lovely conversation, and I I think an experience that invited death as gift for me was a near-death experience in January of 2018. I was in Hawaii during the false ballistic missile notification. So I didn't experience all of those qualities that Damon Sean mentioned, but maybe a handful of them. And, I called both my parents in the expectation that I was lucky enough to get a hold of them to express my love and just share my last words. And I was with two other people, and we all responded in very different ways. And long story short, I responded, or I noticed in my body, I felt it at peace that I'm like, well, I'm on the southernmost point of the United States on this beautiful island, like looking at the horizon, like I'm gonna be okay. Yeah. So if I pass. And so anyway, that really was a pivotal shift for me in my relationship with death.
Thank you. That great big error that sounds like was a gift for you. Wow. Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? Any share? Dave, please.
When you told a story about the monk, I focused on a little different thing. It seems to me that maybe the monk was talking about us being in prison as a human, not literally, but we have a limited comprehension. Like if you go out and you look at the sky, it feels like that's incomprehensible. And it feels good to see that as incomprehensible. That's the mystery that we're going to. And when you die, you go through a door and you go into that mystery, and perhaps you understand it better, perhaps you don't. But that I like that understanding, and sometimes I believe that, and sometimes I forget. And perhaps what the monk was talking about when he said he got angry, maybe he forgot that there was this door. And then he got angry. And I was sharing with Lenny, and I told her this one thing I heard. I heard it from Wayne Dyer, and he said, the universe, another way to think of it is uni is one and verse is song. So the universe is a one song. So in some sense, we go back to the one song that all of us understand. That's it.
Woo. These transmissions, oof, really moving me. Thank you, Dave. The one song. The one song. Thank you. Let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break. And when we come back, we are going to be led by Brenda into what I think of as a bit of a shamanic journey. So stay tuned. See you in 10 minutes.
Hear the background music? Great. And you can hear my voice over the music. Great. Okay. So I'm going to invite you to participate in a guided meditation to journey into your inner, wise, capital S, authentic self. The intention for this meditation is to meet a future you, to gain some kind of insights or wisdom about what's next. The invitation is to clarify whatever content you want to look for, what's next after this class, what's next in your life in general, what's next after this life. And you can also clarify how far in the future this future self is that's going to be meeting you. This is a purely optional activity, and the meditation is intended to be comfortable and enjoyable, but you never know what might be triggering. So at any point in the meditation, you can choose, if you feel uncomfortable or triggered, you can open your eyes and just come back into the room and do any self-care practices that you need to do to recenter and reground yourself. Knowing that anyone who chooses not to do the meditation or comes back early, you're still in this beautiful group energy field, and your participation is then being fully present to others. And I just going to send some gratitude to Lee for bringing us all together. She's brought us together, and we've created this beautiful container of connection and love and mutual respect. So however you proceed with this meditation is all okay. We're going to benefit individually, group-wise, and also anything we do with love and compassion goes out to the universal consciousness. Safety first. So remember, you're going to probably be closing your eyes, and you may even drift off deep into the meditation. So no driving or operating heavy machinery during the meditation. And I invite you to be curious about what comes up for you. Every step of the way, there may be things to pay attention to, and trust the process. We only have a brief time for this practice, and you'll have the recording so that you can go back to it at any time and continue this on your own. Also know that fully embodying what comes up in the experience may take time. But I do invite you to sit with, even after the class, kind of sit with what comes up and allow yourself to integrate this information into your life. And there's no right or wrong way to do these meditations, and we all navigate this life differently, but just be really curious about what your inner wisdom guides you to. And I'm just going to make a couple of suggestions about the theme of what's next. The suggestion is that we are not here to learn and figure out what to do and achieve, but that we're here to really remember and experience our authentic self, our big S self, and to give and receive love, with a knowing that receiving love and loving ourselves are the most important first steps in this process. So with these instructions, just to let you know, the meditation will take about 7 minutes. Afterward, sit for about 3 minutes with the information. You can journal if you like. And then we're going to go immediately into breakout rooms for about 10 minutes in pairs, where you can share whatever you'd like to share. And then we should have time to come back to a large group share. Okay, so if everyone can take a comfortable position, a position you can stay in for a few minutes, and knowing you can adjust your position at any time so that you feel comfortable and relaxed. And if it feels comfortable, you can now close your eyes or gently lower your gaze. This allows you to have a more deep inner experience. So let's start with a 30-second body scan. Starting from the top of your head down to the bottom of your feet. Are there any areas that need attention? You know how to breathe into those areas. You can breathe calm into those areas with slow, deep belly breaths. In through the nose, out through the mouth, extending the exhale to activate the parasympathetic rest, relax, and restore nervous system. So just take a few seconds and just breathe into any areas of tenseness, any areas that need attention. Now, if there are any parts or resistances that come up that are other than curious about this meditation, just notice what comes up, thank them for being there, and just let them know you've got this, and ask that these parts or resistances be a silent observer. Intrusive thoughts can be gently moved out the window and into the sky. I like to let those thoughts jump on a cloud and just float away. Any distracting emotions can be moved down through your body into the core of the earth. Rolling your eyes downward just a little can also be helpful to allow for a deeper internal experience with less distractions. And also know that any distractions that might occur during this meditation, either in my room or where you're at, will just be part of the experience, just to deepen your internal awareness. Now focus back on your deep, slow breathing. Take 2 or 3 deep, slow breaths and begin moving into your heart space, where your authentic self and your inner wisdom resides. Your heart space is the area in the center of your chest where the energy center associated with the physical heart is located. Breathe slowly and deeply into this heart space and begin generating emotions of gratitude. Not thinking about gratitude, but actually feeling genuine gratitude. This is an elevated emotional state. And as you begin this meditation with a clear intention to experience your future self, with this elevated emotional state, you'll be able to go even more deeply into your experience. Now I invite you to visualize an open meadow in your mind's eye. The meadow is full of sunshine and flowers. And you can fill in the visual details. Use all of your senses. Feel the sunshine on your skin, the light breeze on your face. The temperature is perfect for a comfortable walk. And you delight in seeing and smelling the grasses, the flowers, even the earthy smell of the dirt. You're continuing to feel gratitude for all of the beauty you are seeing. And your emotions begin to intensify into curiosity, excitement, joy, and wonder. As you begin to walk in this beautiful meadow at a comfortable pace, you notice a grove of trees in the distance. These trees are so beautiful, and you just spend a moment taking in all of the beauty and feeling the gratitude for all the ways these trees support so much life. As you continue to slowly and comfortably walk towards these trees, a beautiful golden light catches your attention, and you realize someone is standing there. Your curiosity peaks as there is a feeling of comfortable familiarity and an invitation to walk in that direction. And as you do, you notice this person is walking slowly towards you. After taking a few steps, you realize that you do know this person. It's a future you who is welcoming you to come closer, and you begin to feel excited that you're having this opportunity. As you meet your future self, in whatever form it's presented to you, from whatever future time that makes sense for you, you acknowledge each other in whatever way is comfortable. You might sit down on the warm grassy area, or begin to engage in a conversation in some other way. Your future self starts the conversation by thanking you for choosing this lifetime, for taking such good care of your body, and for all of your efforts to learn, grow, and evolve. Most of all, your future self thanks you for the times you were just being, feeling, loving, and allowing. After a time of initial sharing, you ask your future self if there might be a message for you. In particular, a message about your what's next question. Now let's take 2 minutes of clock time to have this conversation, starting now. Now, coming gently back to my voice, you have the opportunity to share gratitude with this future self. In whatever way makes sense, you begin to disconnect from the interaction. And then begin to walk slowly through the meadow away from the trees. Now you begin to slowly come back into your body and into the room, feeling the chair supporting your body. Open your eyes when you're ready and noticing and naming 3 things in the room to make sure you're fully back. So the invitation now is to just take 3 minutes to just sit with the experience. And if you're welcome to journal or just sit with the experience. Okay, everyone. So we can go into breakout rooms for a total of 10 minutes, so 5 minutes shares each.
Yeah, whenever you're ready, Anna. Is Jeff gonna,
Yeah.
okay, let's add Jeff to
Um,
Damon
the,
Sean's room.
yeah, Damon Sean's there just left the meeting.
Great. And then I guess I'm just gonna stay here where I am, so I'm
Mm.
good. Thank you, honey.
Okay. Welcome.
We have time for sharing, Brenda, if you'd like the 5 minutes of large group share.
Yeah, that would be great. If anyone would like to share any part of their experience, that would be great. Turn my video back to, there we go. Okay. You guys can just share or raise your hand, however you want to do it. What I'm going to share is that I do these connect with my future self meditations uh, fairly frequently, just as a way to kind of just sit with something that I'm uncertain about. I don't always get answers, or I don't always get next steps. But for me, it's a way to like kind of tune in to my inner wisdom. And that's really important for me, because sometimes I'm looking for answers and things, externally. And so it kind of breaks that cycle for me. And I start realizing the need to go inside for answers. Um,
I
so
saw
for
I
me,
saw Lenny's hand as well, Brenda, just so you know.
okay. All right, go ahead. Lenny, and then Lenny, then Satya.
Well, thank you so many times over. I've never met future Lenny before. I never imagined going to look for her. That was profound. We got along great. And she invited me to come back anytime. I mean, I said, if I come back, would you be in this meadow? Yes, yes, yes. So, Brenda, whoa.
Mm,
Yeah.
thanks for sharing that. Oh my gosh, I'm getting emotional.
Yeah, me too. It was like, thank you.
Great, thanks for sharing that. Would anyone else like to share?
Yeah, hi, Satya.
Satya.
Oh, that was profound for me. Deeply, deeply, deeply moving. Um, I was so grateful to get Mary Marty to sit with, because I was in just deep tears. And it's just mind blowing experiences like this where, I come into, I was really like, okay, great. No, I'm really going to set myself aside. And so I'm like really ready to hear this. I'm really like, I'm going to get these next steps. And, because sometimes I feel like I get there and I make it up ahead of time, or I'm just like, I'm repeating the same thing. And so I'm like, no, I'm stepping aside, and I'm ready. I'm ready to hear it no matter what it is. And I'll do it. And she says fucking nothing. She says nothing. She just builds layers of light around me. Just builds layers of light around me, layers and layers, with the sweetest smile on her face. And I was I was receiving it, and I was like, oh shit, here we go again. A little bit like that, a little bit like, oh my God, I'm gonna get nothing, right? I must be in my way. I must not really be able to like be available. It's annoying to hear myself, by the way, right now, in a humorous way. And then I said, okay, but really, what do I do? I'm commanding this. Like, I need you to tell me, what do I do? And she said, you do what you're doing. You're in this moment now, and you step into the next moment, and it's all coming, not even telepathically, just as much as a knowing in this present moment now, you know? And she even said, it hasn't even been decided yet. It's still in the process of creation. It's just moment by moment. And of course, more came out when sharing with Mary Marty, deepening in that, which is mostly that this is what I do every day. This is my message every day. This is literally what I teach, what I live. And then I was like, what is this like? this what's the word, mistrust just underlying in me all the time. And I need and the answer is yes, to a degree, right? And I need moments like this to come back. But it was just like that remembrance. It was remembrance, which is my life's work. And the tears really came when we separated. We separated, and I just was heaving, just heaving and heaving. And it was like some sort of level of grief that took me sharing with Mary Marty to realize, and I don't understand it, but it's that some level of grief, but also at the same time, like a relief, because it's a remembrance. It's like, no, you're doing it. It was, it was profound. And I can still feel a little part of me that's just like, will someone just tell me what to do? You know? So thank you so much.
Thank you for that beautiful share, and continue just to sit with just to sit with that, knowing that it's all unfolding exactly as it's intended to, and just sit with that. It's really beautiful. Over to you, Lee.
Thank you, my dear. I so appreciate your precision with all that beautiful timing and how mapped out and intentional it was, and yet how beautifully it all flowed and how touching. Thank you. All right, our last 15 minutes together. I wanted to pick up back up on the thread of the NDEs, the near-death experiences, and just say there's a ton of podcasts and YouTubes, and I don't really have much advice for you in terms of like who or what, because there's just so much out there. Raymond Moody again really kicked off this inquiry in a revolutionary way. That book is worth reading. Timeless. It's timeless, really. There's one guy who I've listened to several podcast interviews and YouTube interviews. I'm going to put the link in the chat, and I think I put it in the resources page. His name is Vinnie Tolman, and he had a unique experience in that he actually died. He was sort of zipped up into a body bag dead, like was dead for 45 minutes. The ambulance came along. It's sort of interesting story. He's a young guy, 25 years old, and had taken this performance enhancing muscle building thing. And anyway, went into a locked bathroom and passed out. And an intuitive thing by this sort of rookie ambulance driver that brought him back. And he has this very compelling story. He has a Christian lens, and that's his commitment, his spirituality. But one of the things I really love is that he came back with principles, like that his guide, whose name was Duncan, he thought it was God, or he thought it was, Jesus or something. And his guide was like, no, I'm just this guide of yours. And he came back with these like 10 principles for living, which I thought was really interesting. And I don't remember them all, but the first one, and the one he talks about, Drake, thank you, David Sean listened to it too. Drake, his guide's name. The first and most important principle is this concept of authenticity. Authenticity, being true to ourselves. So I really, who is his great grandfather? He later found out. Interesting. Yeah, so I really liked his story, and I've liked it so much I've sought it out and listened to it several times because I thought it was so fascinating. But there's lots of stuff out there, so I invite you to explore if that feels alive for you. And I do for myself, and it seems like what near-death experiences do is calm a part of us that is uncertain. And I think the uncertainty is important to keep alive. So, in one hand, having some uncertainty and mystery and unknowableness, and I think, as Dave said it earlier, inconceivability, that's important to keep alive. And then, in the other hand, exploring like, wow, are there these themes that feel true for me? So like, how can we have a sort of both and? Sort of both and. A couple of other resources I wanted to share with you. I did a little prompt in my AI, my chat GPT AI, to create a template or an outline for writing your own eulogy and writing your own obituary, because I found even for myself, it was hard to start with a blank page. And so it did a pretty good job. AI can be really weird and wonky sometimes, but it did a pretty good job. And I put those templates in a Google Drive, each of them in their own Google Drive document, and they're really quite good. Um, put them here in the link, and I also put them in the resources last week. So it would be on the web page of resources under week 12, and it would be write your own eulogy template and then write your own obituary template. And it's a jumping off place to start sort of answering some questions. Like, there's some traditional questions on there, like, what did you do? How did you succeed in ways in your life, your career, your relationships? But then there's also deeper, more heartful questions that I was prompting last week, which is like, what's something that people might not know about you unless you said, or what kind of lineage trauma have you worked out in yourself? What's on your heart in a big way? What do you fear and regret? Like some of these deeper pieces that you might choose to just use, I don't know, as a reflection tool, as a gift for people when you do die, or even as a celebration of life, if anybody decides to do something like that. So I'm feeling really encouraged by that challenge myself. So I'm going to spend some time this winter with it. What else do I want to share with you? Next week, yes, I see you, Ellen. Next week, we're basically going to have a Zoom party, and we're going to take the same time frame. And I don't have really I have one story to share, one sort of archetypal mythical story, but I don't have anything else planned. And my invitation is to come with your eulogy sharings if you have them, or your archetypes if you've done some research into your archetypes. I'd love to hear stories about how you've changed over these 13 weeks, your relationship with your monastic path now of, death curiosity, death literacy. It'll be celebrations. It'll be a solstice party. We started at equinox, and we are really in this turn inward of the year, this turn towards the deep solstice time. So that's, whoever shows up for that, it's, everyone's welcome, and it's completely optional. There won't be formal lessons, but a deepening, I imagine, just based on how the field feels today. So rich, so connected. I think it's going to be very powerful. And I see, hold on, I see you just put something in here. Brenda, do you want to speak to the link you just shared?
Yeah, real quick. That is a YouTube channel called Coming Home, and it's a whole collection of near-death stories.
Look at that. I just clicked on it.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And I have a friend in California who had a near-death experience when he was 19, and he actually goes around and shares his story, and it's just, I mean, for me, it's there's so much that is similar about these stories that is just fascinating.
Yeah. Well, I like this channel. I'm looking at it right now that Brenda just put in here, and it's 133 videos, which is a lot, and almost 300,000 subscribers. And it looks like it's your average person. I mean, I've seen a couple of movies of very famous NDEs, and they're great. I've enjoyed the ones that I have watched, and this looks like just sort of average people that maybe don't even have a book published or, so I really like that. I like hearing just the average person's story. Thank you for sharing that. Oh, Alan, did you want to share? Did we lose Alan?
No, you didn't lose me.
Oh, okay, there you are. Okay, great.
I lowered my hand once you recognized me.
Okay, great.
My buddy for the class is not here this week. And so we talked just before the class because I knew that she had an issue that she would like to ask, and I'm asking for her. She spoke of how you and many of the people here are living in intentional community or have lived in intentional community. And she says, she has no family, no children, no church or intentional community, has friends. So her question is this for discussion here, and she'll receive it in the replay. What are your recommendations for someone who doesn't have intentional community or family to create community for the dying process so that they won't be alone when they die?
Mm-hmm. 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 Thank you, Alan.
Throwing it out to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, so just a shout out to Caroline. Thank you for attending what you have been able to. And I know you're catching this recording. Just, yeah, really feeling the tenderness of that question. I definitely have some thoughts about that. And, we did the sort of death literate community piece around grief and fear, but we didn't really tackle the practical details of what a death care team, for example, might look like. So I have some thoughts, but there are others here in community as well. So, yeah, why don't I share my thoughts and then others can chime in. What I did in both cases of care teams, death care teams that I have had in the past, one was at Earth Haven Eco Village, which was sort of sprung up in the midst of Kimchi's dying, where we wanted to create a team of support with her and for her. And that sort of kicked off our death care team, which continued on after her death, where we sort of sat with each other around like, well, who might be next, or who needs support with end of life planning, or what do we do now that we've had a death, and we want to move in that together as a collective. So that was sort of very powerful and very situational. But I also pulled together a group of women. I was the youngest, and there was 5 of us, and we got together monthly to talk about anything death related, watch a film together or work on paperwork together or have outings and get to know each other more, because we had really a commitment to end of life support for each other and put each other in our paperwork. That care team has also shifted for me. Some of the relationships there has shifted for me. And now I have Damon, Sean, and I are more working sort of together in that spouse kind of way. But I do think finding people who are all in around being present for each other's dying as a gift is really, whoops. I think that is someone else's timing. Being all in terms of, yes, really excited to be part of your own dying, of each other's dying is a beautiful exploration. Not many people are going to be up for that, but certainly I imagine people here would be up for that continued conversation. So those are the sort of thoughts that come to mind. Do other people have thoughts about death, care teams, death literate, companionship, end of life support? Maria, go ahead.
First, I just want to say hello and goodbye to everyone. I missed 4 weeks, and I'm really glad to be back today. Um, I have quite a bit of experience both with care teams and growing a community that has the intention of staying together and providing care to each other. I'd be happy to talk with her about that. Um, and also, there are more and more communities around the country who are doing the same sort of thing. If one wanted to move, I mean, it's a challenge to do it um, if you're not already connected to some people because it's such an intimate connection, right? It's an intimate ask. Um, but I think there are a lot of resources out there. And again, I'd be happy to talk to her, Ellen. I've forgotten her name, or
Caroline,
if she's
it's
listening to
yeah,
Caroline.
it's Caroline
Yeah.
Douglas. Yeah,
Okay.
awesome. That is wonderful. And if you feel
Yeah.
inspired, even to write your thoughts, record your thoughts,
Mhm.
I could put it in a blog on my page. I could send it out to my newsletter. Like that would be a huge
Okay.
contribution.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some really good websites that help organize care teams so
Excellent.
that the persons who ill does not have to do that. A coordinator can do that.
Right.
There are lots of resources.
Yeah. And Caroline, there's also the Center for Conscious Living and Dying, which is in Swannanoa,
Yes.
which is where people
Yes.
are going to die right now. So
Mhm.
if that's imminent in your life or someone you know, that certainly a possibility to check out.
Yeah.
Other thoughts? Does somebody else have their hand? Brenda.
So I just put the link to the International End of Life Doula Association. And there's also a move towards the soul midwife practices, so practitioners. So those are, kind of a place to start, and then they can the doulas or the soul midwives can assist you with creating that community that you need. Also, you can look under. So there's there are Omega homes, which is what I'm hoping to create here in Pittsburgh.
Mhm.
Specifically for the last 2 months of your life to be able to die at home for people who don't have other means to do that. So that's another thing is the Omega home. I don't know what their website is, but
Love it. Thank you.
a couple of suggestions.
Damon Sean, would you like to share these 10 principles from Vinny? I saw that you posted in the chat, but it might be nice to hear from your voice. And then I saw your hand, Carl.
It's so ironic because, I watched his interview and I think you and I watched it together on one of the Gaia episodes on near death life. But I actually watched an interview of him today, totally random. So I had it, and there's a link to it where he's doing an interview. And so, yeah, his guide told him being authentic is like the first foundational piece that we have to be real with ourselves and others, that Earth is a classroom, not a courtroom, that we're here to learn, not to be judged by our behavior, but to learn from it in our interactions, that love is the most important lesson, and especially learning to love everyone and everything, including our own experiences. That Creator has given us the gift of intuition through spirit and to take time to develop it, to learn and trust our own inner knowing of things. That technology is a tool that's either it can lift us up or it can break us down. So be really careful how we're using it and engaging with it. And if we're not sure if it's helping us or hurting us, it's probably hurting us. So get really clear and intentional in how we're using it and engaging with it. And again, this comes back to like whatever we're focusing on, we eventually become. So to get really clear and intentional into our future self, who we want to become, even connecting with our future self to help show us is a powerful way to do that because I believe we can jump timelines that way. And then one of his lessons, and maybe for all of us, was to release all prejudice, including prejudice towards prejudiced people, which he tells the story of. Like that was his biggest thing, was he judged other people who were prejudiced. Um, Again, we literally create from our thoughts. So if we can actually learn to steer the car and control our thinking, that we can control our reality and our outcomes, and that it's really an important lesson that we learn here, that our thoughts do create. And from that also is to avoid negative influences like most media, like most entertainment, even from a distraction place, that our time is better used in intentional ways. Um, and people, negative people. So negative influences, avoid those. And last but not least was like judging others is judging myself. So if I, and especially if I have conflict with others, to cut them off is cutting a part of myself off. So at some point, I need to learn how to make repair, how to find ways through our biggest conflicts and not avoid them ultimately, but to make repair.
Yeah, that is a bundle. That is a package of life lessons right there. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
sure.
Yeah,
Yep.
Vinny's story is very dramatic and profound. Thank you for that. That's so funny that you listened today. Right in tune, my dear. Carl, did you have some thoughts?
No, I was just waving my fingers in appreciation for something. I'm sorry.
And then decided to raise your hand. Awesome. All right. Well, we have come to an end, my dears. So many blessings. Hopefully see some of you next week for our graduation celebration archetypal sharing. Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Mary Marty, for today, for your contributions. So good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
Lee.
you all. Such a
Yes,
beautiful
deepest
village.
gratitude. Deepest gratitude.
Deep bow.
Yes, you are all initiates now in the deep monastic death curious club.
I
Mm-hmm.
think we might need t-shirts.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love this old midwife phrase you just used, Brenda. I wasn't aware of that whole movement. So that's very exciting.
It comes out of the UK.
Nice. Nice.
Yep.
Thanks everyone for being here.
Oh, Carla, we'll miss you next week. Blessings on your trip. Yeah.
All right.
Hmm.
See you next week. Thank you.
Many thanks.
Good to be with you, Anne Marie.
Thank you and goodbye.
Bye, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you,
See you next
ladies.
week.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. The Beckies. That needs to be part of our
Mhm.
t-shirt too.
All right. Thank you so much, Lee. See you next
Bye,
time, next week.
Becky. Okay. All right.